Hi everyone, it's been a while. My brain isn't working too well this week, so as often happens in those situations, chess is back on the menu. But I do have a treat for you today. This is some fish on fish action at 30 seconds a move. So, have you ever wondered how an engine plays Mansindam? Well, the first observation is it is fond of these pawn advances, which I thought initially might be risky weakening moves that create holes in your position. But it also gives you activity for the knight, so space and center control isn't bad either. Yeah, the mortar probably always goes here. I mean, sometimes you also, the rook goes up as well. This is probably less inevitable since it's quite useful to control the back rank. I kind of noticed that it just favors activity above king safety. Of course, the initiative is always absolutely vital in these sort of drop variants. Whoever starts an attack first is probably going to run away with it. Yeah, bishop e3, that might have been white's first inaccuracy, just because it's a little bit too passive. These minor pieces I think are pretty key in this opening. I mean, since they're the weakest piece, they also have the strongest attack, right? So if you can get them into an offensive position, then that's very good. The other pieces can maneuver a lot more easily. It also, like, if it ever gets lost, then that's less of a problem, right, to give to the opponent. Yeah, I think black's bishop is just better positioned here. No? White might have wasted a move there, but it's just a minor thing. Now c7. Hanging a pawn on i7, sort of. I mean, remember, only one of these shogi pawns may exist on a file at once, so winning a pawn and even promoting a bishop is apparently not worth the time wasted on the edge of the board. White doesn't want it. Oh, we could take the other pawn as well. We also do not want it. I would... This is a pretty deep move, actually. I thought it was weird at first, but it seems white is maneuvering his pieces to the right, and his king is probably going to be more safe shifting over there. You've got to be careful shifting the king, though. It's kind of a signal to the opponent where to attack, and you could easily end up behind on the attack. Making a king move is very risky stuff. So, yeah, the mortar coming here, it also eyes this b6 square. It's pretty strong, actually, but not something I would probably ever have jumped to my mind before seeing this game. Yeah, the engine is not averse to castling the king, but it seems that it doesn't love it either. I mean, the tension is just palpable, isn't it? You just know that once a trade happens, all bets are off. And nobody is in a hurry to start anything that might backfire. But the amount of control of the center here is terrifying. Yeah, just one wrong move and that's it for you. Also, if you're the one offering the first pawn trade, you might be behind by one move. Gotta be very careful with that. So, Archangel back. It does open up very slowly, but like shogi, it just gets more and more complicated. You just learn to appreciate the calm here, because it is very temporary, you know. King f5, I guess white blinks first. Really wants the king out of the center. But now we jump on the chance to get a piece nearer the king. Although apparently white is completely unfazed by that. So that's something else, I tell you. Yeah, that pawn, he wants that pawn to be defended. And now comes back. So we made a horse for free. I mean, yeah, it looks nice, no? White doesn't care though. The rook is coming up. I mean, the extra pawn is apparently completely irrelevant. Of course, as you'd expect there. I mean, it's all about the pawn, especially since everyone has advanced their pawns forward and left some like holes behind. I think the pawns, there might be something to be said about keeping them back. But anyway, we don't argue with the fish about these things. And yeah, this is pretty clever. I mean, white never wants to take that because then black will have an uncontested knight in the center. Just starts to eye some dark squares in white's position. That's just way too unpleasant. So we just have the option to take on the bishop, and white is really forced to start an attack somewhere at this point. It's all well and good to just like giving up a pawn and a horse, but yeah, at some point something's going to happen, and that point is now. So what here? This does tempt black into taking that and putting it on b6, but now you've given white a drop as well, and white is stockfish, so he immediately doesn't disappoint. And what kind of a move is that? Is it free? I mean, if we take that, then he would take on d6 here, and we wouldn't be able to recapture that, so he sort of gets away with that. Sure, we can win material here, but you don't count material in this game. You only count threats against the king. You never run out of material here in the attack. Well, unless you really just toss. It's just not really a thing, though. You always have enough to make threats. Knight back. Another fascinating move here. He just doesn't want that to be taken, and it covers all the squares here. And there are no pieces in hand at this moment, so we are still maneuvering. Although white can capture our bishop and start some stuff, and indeed he went for it. Bishop at g9 here, offering 2 pieces for initiative, so we could just clear that out, but then he would have a queen or a chancellor, and yeah, we're not really too pleased with that. So I guess here's your first chance to play like stockfish here. What do you play here? This one's actually findable. So I'm going to give you some real ridiculous puzzles later, but... Alright, your time is up. Retreating the Chancellor as well. I mean, this is a game of initiative, and we're just moving pieces back. That's just some stockfish stuff here. He calculates that even after the bishop takes here, that yeah, there are now some footholds inside the black fort, which look pretty bad to me, but we do have chances to counterattack, and I guess it's not yet fatal. I don't know, this is still scary to be playing like this, frankly. So what now? Well, more retreats, of course. Yeah, I mean, this just looks bad, honestly. But at this exact time, white does not have any way to trade off more pieces, so the maneuvering continues. But yeah, I mean, normally, you know, if I'd have this in one of my games, I'd evaluate this as black is dead, frankly. Okay, we can take on c4 now, because white didn't defend it, but it's not really a comfort, you know. And the calm lasted exactly 1 move now. White has found a way to generate more threats, as it always happens. So this, I'm going to let you into a secret here, is one of the most insane sequences I have ever seen in any game. And I could probably give you a week to think this over, and you probably still wouldn't solve it. And maybe you can solve this first move. Well, maybe, or maybe not, actually. Blue is an engine, so we embrace the chaos. Take that, go for the trades, and then queen takes horse. Why not knight takes horse? Well, apparently the knight was a better defender, and material just doesn't matter. So queen takes horse, bishop takes horse, and here, another chance for you. This is something else there. What to do about this? If I could tell you here that blue almost wins the game with his next move, I think it's barely even an exaggeration. This is the game-winning move here. So what would it be? Alright, if you don't pause immediately, your time is up, and your final chance to play like a god is gone. Bishop at c4 check. Now, this engine still has no idea what's going on, but at the longer time controls this was played at, it was figured out that Archangel takes is actually losing for white due to Queen g1, another non-obvious move, which it doesn't see. It does see that king takes is absolutely necessary, and then the point was cb6 here with Archangel support, so the king has to move, and now it sees that anywhere it goes, it gets checkmated pretty quickly. For example, king to h1, get to put c in at f2 here. Now, you don't really want to be taking this and giving more fuel to the fire, so king g2 here is more stubborn. But Archangel I3, oh, there's the second line as well, but I think this one's kind of the cutest. You want to get the rook off this line so that you can get a checkmate in there later. Alright, force this off now. Yeah, it's checkmate otherwise. Now you have a mortar in hand, and this is a pretty clear checkmate sequence, right? One mortar alone is enough, as long as it can come here, and there's no rook covering that square, right? Can be more stubborn if he wants, but that's the gist of it. So as a result of that, you cannot take this bishop. This bishop is actually a genius move. That is the start of a pretty vicious counterattack from black here. He looked like he was in some trouble, and then bam, bishop at c4. And White needs to do something about this. He doesn't want to run into any more of this sort of stuff, so he blocks with a mortar. It's not pretty, but what can you do? Now queen here, slightly more. You really can't allow a drop over here right now that this has been disconnected. So need to hold that. But now black has a huge initiative, right? He's got enough pieces to keep the attack going almost forever. Although apparently he felt the need to take that first. So there's no Tsume on board immediately. And things have sort of clarified. But it's not a good clarification, because White's position is disconnected and full of holes. This one in particular is a brutal one. Try to block. Now, how would you continue from here? I guess I can give you some more time to think about this. So it's another slightly ridiculous sequence. If you guessed bishop at g1, then you are probably cheating. What kind of move is that? Now, king takes is pretty obviously bad here, allowing a chancellor to go in there with check. So mortar takes would be the other alternative, but then we would be able to drop a mortar here, eyeing e3. And we still have these sorts of threats coming up. So it turns out that not taking that is less bad than taking that. And White dropped a queen here in defense. So it is a stock fisher, so beating it from this position is probably not viable for humans, but it has successfully managed to loosen the position a little bit more, and now can start surrounding White with pieces. And mortar. At some point, he will be so tied up that a checkmating sequence appears. Just exploiting everything and making a boat here. That was the last White active piece. He has a knight still, but okay. Making a boat is just unreasonably satisfying. And this is White's last chance to try and stir up something, I suppose. Bishop i3 is a cute defense and attack. But now there is a Tsume in 10 puzzle on board. So depending on your desired difficulty, you may pause at any point here. Anyway, the first move is ship takes d2. f2, sorry. Queen takes f2. Rook takes h1 equals tiger. Reminder that any piece that promotes gains king movement. So that is a dragon. And now for one of the more ridiculous moves in this sequence. Are you ready for it? Knight at d2. Just so that we can get an archangel in with check. And White is still desperately trying to mount some sort of defense. But this is a pretty funny little image here. He's just completely surrounded. And the rest of it is no doubt a trivial tactical exercise for the fish. But probably not for you. Next move, queen at d3. Now that there is nothing defending that, he's able to take it and force the king to move into an even worse position. And bishop takes to finish it off with a boat. Absolutely beautiful stuff here. So, that was frankly one of the most terrifying demonstrations I have ever watched. Once blue got an attack going, it only took him a few more moves to produce a checkmate puzzle. And so, yeah, what's the lesson here? Firstly, you need to be tactically omniscient, and secondly, the early fight for initiative is decisive. Whoever wins the race to king attack is usually going to generate threats that snowball out of control. Anyway, if you have the balls, you can challenge the fish. Maybe not on this time control. Giving it 30 seconds a move was really just too much, I think. Anyway, that is all for now. Bye.